This is the Financial Beat, helping you hit all the right notes in your financial plan. So sit back as we strike up the band. The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler starts now.
Welcome to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Brigary Financial in Hemet and Redlands, serving you wherever you happen to be in Southern California. Hey, thank you so much for being with us today. My name is Ron Stutz, and we're going to talk about getting you to and through retirement. And before we get going here, Logan, I just wanted to say hello to you. It's great to be with you, and I hope you've had a great week since we talked last.
Yeah, Ron, had a great week. Hope you did as well. And as I always say, happy to be here for my favorite day of the week, Radio Day.
All right, Radio Day, we'll move on. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Your number to call if you would like to have a conversation with Logan one-on-one. And Logan is the same guy you hear on the radio show. You're going to be able to talk to him. And, he speaks sometimes we have to speak in rather generic terms because this show is aimed at so many people. But when you have a conversation with Logan, it's going to be all individual. You'll have an opportunity to sit down and talk one-on-one. It's not going to cost you anything and not going to obligate you to do anything at all. And if this is something that's been on your mind, maybe it's time to go ahead and make that phone call. 888-823-PLAN. We'll give you that number again coming up in just a few minutes. Hey, Logan, a lot of strange things happening out there in the world these days. I'm wondering if you saw this story about a couple in India suing their son and daughter-in-law, citing their lack of a grandchild. They say they paid for their son's education and wedding and are owed monetary compensation to cover those expenses if they don't have a grandchild within a year. That seems a little unreasonable to me.
It does. Talk about putting the pressure on. I mean, that very interesting scenario. I was joking when I heard that. Now I've heard it all. Right? It's one of those things where, I think I'm not going to throw any family members in my family under the bus, but I know some of the grandparents out there, would like to have compensation if they don't have those grandchildren. Right? They all want those grandchildren as soon as they can get them. But that's pretty crazy. They're going back and trying to get tuition and weddings and all that extra money and expenses back if they don't have one within a year. It's a tight time frame.
As you said before, it's a lot of pressure to put on somebody, but also, maybe totally out of their control,
Exactly. There's a lot of factors that might go in there.
No kidding. That's just, I think that's totally unreasonable. A lot of it may have to do with, maybe it's a cultural thing in India. I don't know, but that's just a crazy scenario.
Yeah, I'm not well versed in that.
Well, one thing that we are both well versed in is going out to restaurants to eat, because we've talked so many times about how we both enjoy really good food, and I know you spend a lot of time eating out yourself. So, hey,
yes, I do.
I'm just wondering what we can learn about investing from the restaurant industry. And
oh, nice.
Let's call this segment of our conversation the retirement restaurant. So,
okay.
How about smoking versus non-smoking? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's always been kind of a funny one to me. If those of you guys that remember when there was smoking in restaurants or they offered a non-smoking section or a smoking section, more often than not, it was just a different section, and that actually typically in that same room, right? You weren't in a closed door area. You weren't somewhere else. Typically, it was in a Denny's or wherever you were at, and basically this non-smoking section was in the same room, maybe just a few booths over or right next door to that smoking section. So it really didn't make any difference where you were sitting. You were still going to be right. You were still going to be getting smoke. That's very similar to investing. I see a lot of that sometimes where we think we're protected or we think we're in some other type of diversified asset class when sometimes we're not. So when you look at investing, suffering sometimes unwanted secondhand smoke, we'll call it. You look at examples like that .com crash that happened in the early 2000s. A lot of you guys listening to this show probably remember that. And it took a lot of people to really realize that a lot of those sectors of the technology companies, they weren't actually profitable, right? So a lot of them were really speculative and were producing really great returns based off of hope of results. And really, a lot of those companies came down very fast when that dot-com crash hit. And a lot of people thought, well, maybe I have only a portion of my money in these tech stocks, but I have other bits of my money in the NASDAQ, not knowing that the NASDAQ tracked tech stocks, or not knowing that the S&P was made up of a lot of technology companies. So the loss and the unwanted risk was really no one was really aware of it if you didn't really understand that a lot of your assets were all in technology. And so when you look at a lot of these different asset classes out there, I meet with clients a lot when they don't really understand the real true diversification and how to diversify into different asset classes, into different sectors, all those different variations to really make sure that you do have a smoking versus non-smoking room, meaning you actually have some dividers in there to help provide that diversification.
We're talking about the retirement restaurant here, and sometimes you go to a seafood restaurant, for example, and pick 2 out of 3 items here to be on your seafood platter. Let's say. And also another way to think about this 2 out of 3 concept is, it's been said that you can eat food that's healthy, cheap, or easy, but you can't have all 3 at the same time. And I know that based on the conversations that you and I have had in the past about financial planning and investments, it's hard to have 3 things at the same time, but you can get 2 out of the 3, right?
Exactly. Like you said, healthy, cheap, and easy. That's kind of what everybody wants when they're looking at food. And exactly the same thing. I hear a lot of those the people typically want 3 or 4 things out of their investments, out of their retirement planning, like you said, Ron. And I think a lot of people, when they look at investments, they want safety, they want growth, and they want liquidity. And some of them want tax efficiency as well, just depending on the client. But the 3 primary is definitely safety, growth, and liquidity. The problem is I don't know any investment out there that offers all of those in one, right? When you look at the stock market, what does it provide? It provides growth. It does have some liquidity to it, but it definitely doesn't have safety. When you look at the banking world, it provides safety and liquidity, but no growth, right? So you have to throw in a couple of these different worlds. And then there's also the other asset class out there, annuities. Annuities do provide safety and growth, but they're lower on liquidity. So what I like to tell people is when I'm working with a client, we typically, if they come in here with those 2 or 3 goals in mind, it's not like, hey, let's take your retirement and put it all in this one asset because it's going to accomplish all 3 of your goals. That's not how it works. But I tell people there's enough investments out there, and if done properly, we probably can get 2 out of the 3 or sometimes 3 out of 3 if we look at some of these different asset classes to utilize them in your plan, right? Not one investment's going to make up all of those, but when we throw in stock market, cash equivalents, annuities, long-term care, some of these different asset classes in there, we could typically accomplish all of those in your retirement plan. And I think that's where the true value of retirement planning comes in, not just throwing your money in your 401k and hoping it works out, but truly looking at true diversification to plan for your retirement.
All right. We're talking about the retirement restaurant here on the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Rick Gary Financial. And Logan, have you ever noticed that, sometimes when you go to a restaurant, there will be a hostess. Anytime you go to a restaurant where you don't just seat yourself, there's oftentimes a hostess, and oftentimes that is a high school person, a very young person who's, kind of got a part-time job, or maybe they're just getting started working in the restaurant industry. What kind of parallels can you draw there in the financial world?
Yeah, I don't think anybody goes to, when they become a hostess, they don't plan on doing that forever typically, right? Like you said, Ron, it's pretty much an entry-level job for most people. And I like to look at that from the investing side of that. A lot of times when you get started in a 401k, an IRA, or some type of work defined benefit plan, or some type of retirement account, you typically start investing, some of you guys, over 30 years ago, right? Meaning you were maybe just out of high school, just out of college, and got your first job, started putting money away. Well, a lot of people don't look at their investments. I know as a financial advisor, it sounds crazy to me that a lot of people were funding our own retirements, and we don't really think much about it until until that time comes, till you have a life event or you start getting ready to retire or something like that happens. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people don't realize that they're investing the same way they were 30 years ago and haven't changed anything. That old saying, right? Like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But as you're approaching retirement, a lot of things change. I notice a lot of our clients, when we're transitioning to retirement, it's a much more difficult phase because now instead of putting money away in this retirement plan, you're planning to take money away, right? Instead of putting $30,000 a year into this, you want to now maybe take $30,000 a year of income. So it's a whole shift in mindset. And I always use this example in our presentations or on the radio show all the time, but most people don't, they don't get into difficult situations, or they don't fail while going up the mountain, right? Climbing the mountains when you're putting money away and working hard and you're really structuring your savings and all that. That is the accumulation phase, we call it. Most people end up struggling or becoming in danger on the descent, right? Coming down the mountain. We call that the distribution phase because it's so tricky, because it's totally a different shift in mindset to where you're looking at, instead of, again, adding money, willing to take risks, now you're probably not adding money. You're probably not willing to take as much risk, and you probably want some sort of income for this to kind of guarantee a paycheck into retirement, right? So I think it's a whole different shift in mindset, and I think it's very important when you're looking for financial advisors, or maybe you don't have one, is to really make sure that you have a financial advisor that specializes in retirement planning. I know a lot of advisors out there specialize in, maybe it's debt consolidation, maybe it's student loans, maybe it's general financial planning, and then there's people like us where we specialize in retirement planning. That's all we do, is help people get to and through retirement. So if you're one of those people listening to this show and you're trying to look at what are the different ways to put an efficient retirement plan together, give us a call. I'd love to sit down, spend an hour with you in our discovery meeting, and really go over what goes into making a comprehensive plan and going over some of the technical difficulties that we see that our clients have when planning for retirement.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Call that number today, and you will be in touch with Regari Financial, with convenient offices in Hemet and Redlands, and wherever you happen to be in Southern California. They would love to have an opportunity to work with you. And listen, when you arrange that phone call, all you got to do is leave your name and your phone number right now. But when you do arrange that conversation, you're going to have the conversation with Logan Sadler, the same guy you hear on the radio show here. It's going to be a very relaxing and informative conversation, a casual conversation. You'll enjoy it. There's no salesmanship involved, no pressure, nothing like that. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Vice President, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. There's more coming up in just a moment.
We talk a lot about creating a better 401k, but are we actually taking steps to do so? Maybe it's time to stop talking the talk and start walking the walk. By texting the word advice to 21,000, Logan Sadler can provide you with his 401k action steps, a guide that provides you with powerful information that could potentially save you thousands in taxes and fees and put you one step ahead when it comes to your retirement. So text the word advice to the number 21,000 today. For this special report, text the word advice to the number 21,000.
Financial stability, relaxing retirement, tax reductions. Do those things sound like music to your ears? Then you've tuned to the right show, because here on the Financial Beat, we want to give you the tools to build your financial plan. So don't change that dial, because Logan Sadler has some information that will leave you singing the tune of a better retirement.
Welcome back to more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. This show is all about getting you to and through retirement and making sure that you are tax efficient in every way, that you've moved from the accumulation phase to the distribution phase, which is two totally separate things. And a lot of folks listening to the show may have a financial advisor already, but you might not have the right kind of financial advisor. Logan Sadler specializes in getting you to and through retirement, and we'll talk more about what that means in just a little while here. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call right now. Leave your name and phone number, and you'll get a call back, and you can arrange a time to talk with Logan It's absolutely free conversation and will provide you with a lot of peace of mind. There's no obligation to do anything beyond that either. 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call. Regari Financial. Hey, got a fun fact of the week here for you, Logan. I know you'll like this one. According to social scientists, the most productive employees tend to work for an average of 52 consecutive minutes and then break for an average of 17 minutes. So, I don't know how in the world they figured this out, but it sounds good to me.
Yeah, no kidding, huh? Give it a little less than an hour to get maybe almost a half-hour break there. But I do find this study interesting because there is a lot of people out there, and if you've ever worked in a big office or played sports or any of that type of stuff, you can really see certain people have they're more productive or more efficient in a certain element or a certain setting, and that's very interesting. I've always found those type of research articles very interesting because we've all seen ourselves at work where we think maybe some of us are more productive or efficient in the morning, or like you said, maybe we do better with a 5-minute break or a 17-minute break in this case. But I find that very interesting because I do believe there is some truth to it, but not all of us can work an hour and get a half hour off, right? That's not necessarily realistic.
Yeah. Hey, and if given the choice between having a 5-minute break or a 17-minute break, I'll take the 17-minute long break.
No kidding. I'm with you on that all day long, right?
Well, let's talk about financial disasters. Disasters, not something that we enjoy talking about, but with wildfires in California or hurricanes in other parts of the country, floods, we always seem to be hearing about these kinds of weather disasters constantly, and we're all very familiar with the problems caused by natural disasters. And while life and limb aren't necessarily at stake when it comes to your financial portfolio, experiencing a financial disaster can still have a catastrophic effect on your life in retirement. So today I thought we could discuss some portfolio disasters that we've seen, or that you've seen, I should say, and how to avoid them. First of all, a recently widowed spouse who's completely in the dark about the financial situation. That is a really potential financial disaster for that person. How do you help them solve that problem?
Yeah, that's a great point you brought up there. Like you said, it is a big disaster, and I see that often. I'll share 2 stories with you actually, where one on each side of this. What I mean by that is I actually am working with a client right now. Her name's Diane, and I'll keep the last name private, obviously, but her name's Diane, and basically her husband handled everything. He did the taxes, he did the financial planning, he did everything. And I'll say, honestly, he did a very, very good job of setting everything up very well. They put together a pretty large estate. They had over just shy of $2 million put together when you look at real estate investments and things of that sort. And anyway, she ended up coming to one of our events, and she had said her husband just passed away, handled everything, and she really just had this bundle of statements that she did not read necessarily. She was very smart, obviously. She knew a lot of different things, but she wasn't a financial person. Investments and stocks, bonds, annuities, that type of stuff wasn't her cup of tea, and she was really the first to admit that. And she had liked the presentation we put on, so came in the office, and we were actually sitting there talking and kind of going over everything, doing our discovery meeting, talking about, she's currently retired and all that stuff that goes into our discovery meeting. And then all of a sudden, she kind of pulls out these, like I said, a bundle of different statements. And like I said, I found that they had just about $2 million put away in a very good estate, were comfortable on income. But I started to look, her husband had been a little nervous about putting money away with different companies and different investments throughout the years. So they had over 15 different accounts.
Wow.
Okay, so she had like 9 Roth IRAs between her and her husband spread across, some of them at E-Trade or Fidelity or Vanguard or wherever they were just kind of spread around. And for those of you that know how to do that, it's not that hard. But when you're someone that doesn't understand financials and you have 14 or 15 different accounts to deal with, that itself is confusing, right? So what we were able to do is really just go through our process with her and educate her in the areas she needed to be educated in and had questions in, but we were able to put together a much more efficient plan, a much more simplistic plan to really put her more on track to help approach retirement a little bit better, involve her kids in the process. That was something she really wanted. Her oldest son is very involved, and so we were able to do that and work with them, and it was just a really great experience for us to help transition from, again, a very devastating event for this family to deal with, and to help someone come out the other side of that is very it's very fulfilling when you look at it from our standpoint. And I'm actually working with another client, Ron, who is coming on board with us, right? It's in the new, very beginning process of coming on board. And one of our biggest things was his wife is not involved at all. She's never really been the financial person. Mm-hmm. We asked several times for her to be on the Zoom call with us. And he kept, that's a really great point. That's a really great point. I appreciate you for asking. My other advisors never asked to talk to my wife, right? And so I think it made them feel more comfortable that we wanted to talk with her. Yeah. And anyway, she came on the next Zoom call, and we were able to kind of go over the plan and kind of cover some of the areas that her husband had been worried about when planning for retirement. And it ended up that those were a lot of her same concerns, as well as she had a few different ones in there. And we were able to really kind of make her feel very involved in the process. I think a lot of people accidentally exclude the other person just because they know it's not their cup of tea. And as the advisor, it's not my job to get on there and try to intimidate them and talk about expense ratios or all this stuff that a lot of people don't know about, but really take the time to make sure to lay out what concerns we're solving for in the plan and really involve them in the process. That way we kind of help eliminate that problem if something happens to one of the spouses. We already have a relationship established. They already know what the plan is, and it's a lot more. I call it sleep assurance, right? It makes the clients just feel more comfortable in their overall situation. If something like that were to happen, you've kind of already planned for that storm.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Very important phone number if you'd like to reach Logan Sadler and get a conversation going about your individual situation. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make that happen. We're talking about financial disasters or potential financial disasters. And Logan, we've seen this a lot with long-term care needs and all that kind of thing, and people are living longer these days, and something we've discussed at length on this show. Sometimes there's a family legacy that gets absolutely wiped out by nursing home expenses, and with advanced planning, you can maybe keep that from happening, right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it, Ron. Advanced planning. I think, most of the people that we deal with, if they say, oh, maybe I have an advisor, okay, they might say, my advisors talk to us about stocks and bonds. I got a really good split between bonds and equities, and I'm doing good. Market returns are good. And I always tell people that is the very, very vanilla retirement plan, right? It means you really haven't looked at anything else as far as risk, whether that's tax planning, whether that's income planning, whether it's diversification. And the other thing that always comes up that a lot of people tend to miss with retirement planning is long-term care. Like you said, Ron, it's one of those expenses that nobody really sees coming until it comes. And then all of a sudden, when you're in the middle of it, there's nothing you can do, right? It's one of those things where we just kind of have to, play the hand we're dealt if we wait too long. And a lot of our clients coming on board in their 60s and early 70s, there's still a lot of planning that can be done as far as shifting portfolios and making adjustments to cover long-term care. I have a client I talk about quite frequently on this show. They've been with us for a few years, but they did come on board later in life, and now she's almost in her 90s, and it's quite amazing, Ron. She has, and those of you out there that have portfolios or have retirement planning or have retirement accounts, listen to this number and think about this. This client has been spending around $10,000 per month, okay, for long-term care. She has spent $120,000 per year, wow, and she's been in long-term care for the last 3 years. That's $360,000 that she has paid so far in long-term care costs, right? So most of you out there are just hoping to leave behind $360,000 to beneficiaries or to an estate or to a charity. So I always tell people, if this client had came to us sooner, I have other clients I could tell you about where we have policies or long-term plans in place. And it's one of these things where not having a proper long-term care plan can eat away at a retirement nest egg quicker than almost anything out there, because it's one of those expenses that you really don't have a choice on, right? There's nothing else to do. You want your spouse or your mom or your parents to have the proper care to help transition during this difficult point. But it's something where it is a huge, huge impact on, like I said, whether that's legacy or whether that's just overall portfolio expense. It's such a killer.
Wow, that is a lot of money you're talking about there. And here's another scenario that you and I have talked about quite a lot. It's really sad when you have someone who is just living off Social Security, and let's say they're in their 80s, living only on Social Security. That's not going to be a very comfortable retirement.
No, it's not, Ron. You said that very, very correctly. It's one of those things where we hate to see it. It's very sad. It's a very unfortunate situation because it's just not one of those lives you want to live in retirement. Just off Social Security, I'll tell you right offhand, it's not enough, right? It's not enough to get you that lifestyle you want, to take the trips you want to do, to go eat at the diner, to do the things you want to do in retirement, or maybe that you envisioned in retirement. It's just not the way to do it. Those of you that are younger listening to this show, maybe you're 40 or 50 years old, it is time to get in savings mode. I always tell people, I hear it all the time, I used to make a bunch of money, right? But that means that they didn't put it away, so when they retire, they don't have any money. So it's one of those things where the earlier you start, the more efficient and more purposeful you get with investing and saving, you can help eliminate that, that huge unfortunate event that could happen if you don't put away money and do things efficiently throughout your working career. Because I'll tell you right offhand, I see people a lot that come in here and all they have is Social Security, and they're looking for different ways to do different things. And, there's only so much you could do at that point in retirement, especially once your time's ticking to start take Social Security. It's a very, very tricky slope. And I always tell people the earlier you come on board, the earlier we start to plan and shift investments around or shift the planning around and really get more purposeful for retirement. It makes a huge impact over your retirement.
It is time to make that phone call to Logan Sadler's office and get a conversation going. And Logan, when you talk with someone for the very first time, how's that conversation going to go?
Yeah, how our conversations go at that discovery meeting is really you come in, you sit down, or maybe we do it over Zoom. We're doing a lot of Zooms now with people all over. And basically how it works is we go through a questionnaire. I'll ask you, how much income do you guys make? How much do you save? Do you have any debt? How much assets do we have saved for retirement? How much longer are we going to work? Is it 1 year, 2 year, 5 years? How much longer are we working? And we really go over a full comprehensive plan. A lot of you guys that are, coming on board with us right now, the experience you get is it's a full in-depth review of your overall financials as well as a getting to know you. We really want to sit down and make sure we understand you, your family, what your goals are, and really maximize retirement for you. I think a lot of people that listen to this show get a lot of great general information from the show, but I guarantee you get a lot more value out of the discovery meeting by, again, coming in or doing one of our Zoom calls where we'll take a deep dive and be able to tailor this a lot more customized to you and your family. So give us a call, come in, spend an hour. It's a complimentary consultation where, again, we're just going to take a deep dive into you and your retirement needs.
That discovery meeting can be yours by calling 888-823-PLAN. That's 888-823-7526. But the easy way to remember the number is by using the word PLAN, which is something we talk about quite a lot on this show. 888-823-PLAN. Logan Sadler and the folks at Regary Financial have been working with 3 generations of some of the client families, and many of those clients have been with the firm for well over a quarter of a century. And remember that Logan also has great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, real estate agents, mortgage lenders, Medicare specialists, all those folks to help offer well-rounded guidance in all things financial for their clients. Discovery meeting can be yours at no cost, no obligation involved either, but first you need to reach out with a phone call, 888-823-PLAN. You're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, Regary Financial. We'll have more coming up in just a moment.
Do you hear that? That's the sound of a plan that has some serious issues. Much better. That's the sound of a plan that was created by someone listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler. So which sound is your financial plan making?
We're back now with more of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, VP and Chief Investment Officer at Regary Financial. Not only does Logan have this radio show, but he also has a variety of podcasts available you can listen to anytime, and also so many YouTube videos out there. Logan, tell our listeners about those.
Yeah, if you're listening to the show and want some more information on the visual side, you can head over to our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and type in The Financial Beat, and there's over 20 videos already uploaded on there of different content, whether it's how to maximize Social Security, maybe highly appreciated real estate, how to put together a retirement plan, a lot of great general basis of retirement planning. Again, head over to YouTube, The Financial Beat, and click subscribe, as well as we have this podcast. So the radio show you're hearing right now, you can actually head over to podcasts, whether that's Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon, type in The Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, and you can check out over 60 episodes of this radio show in different formats to, again, educate you and maybe listen to it whenever it's at your convenience, wherever you're traveling around. So again, head over to The Financial Beat.
That's what it's all about, education. Logan wants to make sure that you have all the information you possibly can or you possibly want. And then you can make this phone call and have a conversation with Logan one-on-one. 888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Your number to call to get a no-cost and no-obligation conversation going. We call it a discovery meeting. You discover things about Logan. He discovers things about you. You get to know each other and decide if you like to work together. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make that happen. Again, no cost and no obligation. Hey, I got a quote of the week here that I think you'll enjoy, Logan. Josh Billings, I have no idea who that is, but I read earlier this week that Josh Billings said, always live within your income, even if you have to borrow money to do so.
That sounds a lot like most Americans, right? I mean, we tend to overspend, and if we're overspending, there's a solution, right? Just borrow more money. That's kind of how that advice sounds there. I don't know who Josh is either, but that's a pretty funny quote. Again, hopefully you're not following that advice, but very humorous.
All right. Well, let's go to some serious stuff here in the mailbag this week. Our first question is from Lois in Orange County. And Lois says, I'm worried about what life will look like for my daughter once I'm no longer around. She's able to live alone, but has some special needs, and I provide some financial support for her. I have a sizable life insurance policy on myself, so she's going to get plenty of money when I die, but I'm just worried that she won't know what to do with it. Any suggestions on how to handle this situation?
Yeah, unfortunately, we do have a lot of experience in this area where, it's a tough situation, Lois. I think where obviously you want what's best for your daughter. It looks like you have a life insurance policy, so you've planned well on that end. But what I would really tell you to do, and whether that's giving us a call or finding someone that you can relate to, where you really want to get a good financial advisor on your side, because that is who's going to guide your daughter if something happens to you, what to do with the life insurance policy that once it's paid out, what to do with all your other investment assets and things of that sort, where you really make sure you have someone that's on her team when something happens to you to help do a lot of the stuff that you probably do for her, whether that's investment decisions, income, stuff like that. And it's very important to find a financial advisor that you could relate to that can help facilitate that, maybe for your situation currently, and then when you pass as well. The other would be is to make sure you have a good trust set up to where the assets might go to the trust, depending on what other assets you have, to make sure that you have somebody in place as the secondary trustee to really facilitate what you want in the trust. I know we work with a great group that actually that's all they do is they're secondary trustees for trust. And, it's really important that you have the proper documentation and things of that sort in place to make sure if something happens to you that your daughter's going to be in a situation that you want her to be in and that she feels comfortable in, because that is a very tough spot to be in. But it sounds like you've done a lot of the legwork already. But I would just urge you on those next two steps to really make sure, again, find a good financial advisor, that's someone that you trust that can help navigate for your daughter once you are passed, as well as maybe look into some documentations and meet with an attorney to get a trust set up.
Lois, I would certainly suggest that you call 888-823-PLAN, 888-823-PLAN, and have a conversation with Logan Sadler about this situation. I'd be glad to sit down and talk with you one-on-one about this whole scenario. Next question here is from Joe in Rancho Cucamonga. And Joe says, I have some stock that I got many years ago, and it's now worth more than 10 times what it was when I bought it, because it's grown so much. It now represents a big percentage of my investments, so I'd like to sell it, but if I do that, I'm going to have a huge taxable gain. Is there a way to sell this stock without giving so much of it to Uncle Sam?
Yeah, that's a really great question, Joe. Thanks for writing in. And, that's a very unfortunate but fortunate situation to be in, right? I always tell people when it comes time to paying tax, especially on an investment like this, yeah, it's never fun to give Uncle Sam a piece, but the nice part about it is when you pay taxes, it means you made money, right? That's always the best part. It means you made money. Exactly. But there's obviously, we get where Joe's coming from, where we want to do this as efficiently as possible. And yes, there is some advanced planning techniques you can utilize to maybe minimize taxes in some areas. But one of the biggest things I would look at, depending on how much money we're talking about and what your other estate looks like, there's other things you could do, like charitable gifting. You can gift highly appreciated stock to a charity or things of that choice if that's a route you wanted to go, as well as you could look at maybe tax loss harvesting throughout the years on that, and really make sure that you have it fit into your plan. I always tell people there's a lot of different scenarios we could use, Joe, depending on what our main goal is. And I would really need to sit down with you a little bit more and kind of take a dive into some of the other areas that might be a good fit, because there are a couple options when it comes time for that to make sure we're maximizing that situation. But like I said, Joe, it's a great spot to be in. But give us a call. I'd love to sit down and really kind of go over some of those advanced techniques that might be a good fit or might not, but at least we had the conversation to make sure we've looked at all the avenues. And like I said, everyone's okay with paying Uncle Sam, but we don't want to pay more than we need to, right?
Yeah. That's one of the things that, is so important about having a conversation with Logan Sadler, because he can help you become more tax efficient. And as Logan just said, we don't mind paying our fair share, but you don't want to have to pay more than you should. And that's a terrible situation to be in. And Logan always looks at that aspect of your financial planning. Next question here is from Peter, and Peter is in Oxnard. Peter says, there's so many things that worry me right now about our country and the future of our economy. You're certainly not by yourself, Peter. The national debt, inflation, future taxes, too many baby boomers retiring. Has the financial world always been this anxiety-ridden, or am I just more aware of it because I'm close to retirement now?
Yeah, you brought up a great question there, Peter, and I appreciate you for writing in, and thanks for listening to the show. It is one of those scenarios where, I'll be real honest with you, most of the time you do become more aware of these types of things when you're getting ready to utilize things like Social Security, right, retirement, all those things, inflation, future taxes, all that stuff does worry you once you've probably accumulated assets and are getting ready to retire. With that being said, yes, it is a very, very, not a strange time, but it's a very interesting time just because there is a lot going on in the world, right? Depending on over the last 2 years or so, there just feels like nothing else worse can happen, and then this happens, right? Or this happens. And I definitely understand that and can empathize with that. The other thing to kind of ease you a little bit is, yes, there is always things going on out there, right? Things are never smooth and perfect. I always joke, things are kind of like a marriage or kind of like life, right? Retirement planning is a lot like a marriage or like life, meaning that it's never perfect, right? There's always a bumpy road here or there, but somehow we figure it out and make things work. And really, it helps the longer you think long term, because the bumps and bruises are going to come. But thinking long term is always the best case scenario. And when I look at, a few different market events we've seen that are similar to right now, you look at 2008. I mean, a lot of people, when that housing and real estate crashed, there was a lot of people that had no idea if we'd ever recover to those highs or how it would happen or how long it would take. And now we're seeing numbers where, we're seeing record housing prices again. We're seeing a lot of great stock market performance over the last few years. I mean, things have been good since. You look at, 9/11 was a very scary time, right? We had a lot of people that, that was one of the very few times we've had an incident here on American soil. The market crashed. I mean, there was a lot of uncertain events, as well as Black Friday, the Great Depression. I mean, there's always these events that happen. What I always like to tell people is you can't control these events, right? We're not the government. We're not the president. We're none of those things, right? So as the American consumer, all you can do is make sure you're taking the right amount of risk. You put yourself in the best situation you can, and you've looked at all the other asset classes, investments. You've looked at all the tax planning. There's things we're doing with our clients right now, like Roth conversions. If you're one of those people that has, Peter, if you're one of those people that has a good amount put away in their 401k and you're of age, there's a lot of different things we can do where we can do Roth conversions to help shield ourselves against rising taxes. I always tell people, if you're worried about this, that, or the other, just worrying about it doesn't do anything, right? You got to take action and really start planning towards those things that you're worried about and really try to take as much control of what you can control. And I think that's the best way to think about it, Peter. And hopefully that kind of answers your question that, yes, there always is things that are going to happen throughout retirement and throughout our life, just because that's how the world kind of crumbles down sometimes. But making sure that you're putting yourself in the best situation to take advantage of what it is you're worried about and what your concerns are is always the best course of attack.
Peter, I certainly hope you will call the number to talk with Logan Sadler, 888-823-PLAN. Maybe just sit down and have a conversation about all these things, and you'll certainly achieve a great deal of peace of mind, and that's what Logan Sadler is all about. There are a lot of folks out there who need to place a call to your office, Logan, at Regari Financial. What kind of conversation will you have in that discovery meeting?
Yeah, great question, Ron, as always. Basically, how our process works is we tend to think of things a little bit different than most financial firms out there where, sometimes you'll go in there and they'll take a look at one page of your portfolio and say, hey, here's what I would do. I would move this money here or do this or that. Our firm does things a little different. We have a 3-meeting process. So at meeting 1, we call it our discovery meeting. That is a getting to know you. We're just really going to talk about what assets do you have? How much income do you make? What are your fears when planning for retirement? What current situations are you in that you'd like to be out of in a few years, right? We take a look at a lot more as far as the planning side, and no investments are moved. There's no recommendations on the first meeting. It's really getting to know you and your situation and what it is we're trying to do and making sure we're a right fit. I think that's so important for a lot of people out there. They just kind of meet with an advisor and are kind of scared to maybe go to somebody else. They just make a decision. Our thing is we like to make sure that you are a good fit for our firm and that we're a good fit for you. We want to make sure it's a great relationship that's going to last. And then at the second meeting, we're going to go over investment recommendations, proposals, tax analysis. We're going to take a broader scope of everything to where we make sure, again, that we're really taking the time to take a deep dive into your situation to take the best course of action that's going to, positively affect your retirement plan. So at that first meeting, again, it's just a great getting to know you. Give us a call. I'd love to sit down and show you how we could probably shed some light on your retirement plan and probably make it more tax efficient and possibly reduce risk when planning for your retirement.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-PLAN. Your number to call for Logan Sadler, Vice President and Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. And it's important to point out that that's who you're going to talk to when you have that discovery meeting. You're going to be able to have a conversation with Logan Sadler one-on-one. And in order to make that happen, the first step you need to take is call this number, 888-823-PLAN. You can find out more about what your situation is, get a good assessment of where you are, and maybe find out some pitfalls that you might be able to avoid, some ways to get on track if you're not on track already. But you will come away with a lot more knowledge than you had going in. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make that happen. Remember that Logan Sadler has great partnerships with local CPAs, attorneys, mortgage lenders, Medicare specialists, real estate agents, everybody out there involved in something to do in your financial life. Logan Sadler, of course, can talk to you about all those things in the discovery meeting and give you more details. So, again, one more time, number 888-823-PLAN. That is your number to call. Ron Stutz here along with Logan Sadler. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Did you know music is good for the heart? A study at a university in Italy showed that music helps promote a better cardiovascular system. But we also know that a sound financial plan is good for peace of mind. Keep listening to the Financial Beat so we can help you find a plan that both your head and your heart can agree on.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler, VP, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial. Logan loves doing this show every single week because he gives them an opportunity to meet new folks, because people call in after every show and arrange to have one of our discovery meetings. Very important. You can discover more things about Logan. He can discover things about you. The important thing to point out is that it's a one-on-one conversation, or one-on-two if you are bringing in somebody in your spouse or your partner. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Logan, of course, the VP, Chief Investment Officer at Regari Financial, a firm that's been around for a very long time. And Logan hears all the time from folks in Rancho Cucamonga, Banning, Beaumont, Temecula, Loma Linda, Corona, wherever you are. You're certainly welcome to call that number right now. Leave a message with your name and phone number. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. Logan, in our last segment of the show, you mentioned the YouTube videos that you have, the YouTube channel that Regari Financial offers. Tell us more about that and what kind of information folks can get on there.
Yeah, great point, Ron. So if you actually head over to the Financial Beat on YouTube, there actually will be a bunch of different videos we're uploading on there each week. They're on different topics that you might enjoy on the radio show, but I'm able to take a much deeper dive and focus more on one topic. And we have some of them on there like evaluating your risk, the impact of inflation, a lot of different things on there and hot topics about what you guys are asking for, but we're able to slow it down a little bit and bring that content to you visual each week. So head over to the Financial Beat on our YouTube channel, click subscribe, and follow along.
That's great. There's some really good information on there as well. I can attest to that. So please go to YouTube, search for the Financial Beat, and all of this stuff will pop up. Time to go to the mailbag here. We have a great question from Lisa, first of all, in Ontario. Lisa says, I just inherited 3 different investment accounts from my mother. One is an IRA. One says that it's a non-qualified annuity, and one just says brokerage account. What do these different distinctions mean in terms of the taxes that I'm going to pay on each account?
Yeah, great question, Lisa. Thank you for writing in. Appreciate you listening to the show. And again, sorry for your loss. So your mother passing away is very difficult, and this is one of those situations that is difficult as well from a financial aspect. Is you have 3 different accounts. Like you said, what are the taxes? What does Uncle Sam want of each of these, right, is basically the question. Yeah. So in a nice way, though, of course, there's a few different reasons. Let's cover the IRA first. So the IRA, if it is a traditional IRA, how that works is basically that money is 100% taxable. So there's some very different, some very certain explanations of how you want to take that money out. You do have what's called the 10-year rule. And basically what that means is you can take that money out over 10 years and kind of spread the taxes out. I would want to know more about your income and your household income, because what that will allow us to do is strategize on what might be the best situation to start getting that money out of there and turning that into what's called an inherited IRA. That's to answer that question. So unfortunately, it is all taxable, but there is some different tax strategies you could use to get that money out maybe more efficiently than taking just a lump sum rollover or lump sum pullout. The next one is the non-qualified annuity. So that one probably is only you're going to be taxed on the gains. So how annuities work is typically non-qualified. You're not taxed on the initial amount, just the interest earned. So I wouldn't know without looking at the statement on that one. But again, that's another account type that you really want to make sure you're looking at the benefits of what you need to do with it or work with a professional. As well as in the third one, you have that taxable brokerage account. That one you might get a stepped up in basis on, and if you're not sure what that is, I'd love to explain that a little more. But if you pass away on a non-qualified brokerage account, typically how that works is you do get the stepped up in basis if there's any gains. It depends on if there's losses, right? It just depends on what's going on. So would need to look at the statement further to give you some further expertise on that. But I think the bottom line is here, you kind of need help. I think give us a call. I'd love to sit down and go through this with you, because as you can see, there's several different accounts. All of them have different tax implications, so it's very important that we sit down and do this right the first time.
You certainly made a good decision by sending us this question, Lisa. Thank you so much. But certainly a one-on-one conversation with Logan Sadler with more specifics on the numbers will give him a much better idea of how you should handle all this. But again, thank you so much for the question. That number to call if you'd like to have that conversation is 888-823-PLAN. 888-823-PLAN. Again, a discovery meeting. No cost, no obligation. Next question here is from Sam in Redlands. And Sam says, my wife just found out that she can start taking Social Security when she turns 62, and now she really wants to retire when she hits that age in a few months. I've been trying to tell her that it's better to wait and start taking it later, but I'm not doing a great job of convincing her. Can you tell her that I'm right? He wants you to weigh in on this argument.
He does. I think Sam's looking for a win here in this argument. Thanks for writing in, Sam. Appreciate it. There's a few things here, and you may, I'm going to not give you that absolute win, but you may be right, okay? So your wife may want to listen to you. The biggest thing I would look at here is you really want to make sure that you guys get a retirement plan together. I don't think you don't want to just turn on Social Security because you're going to turn it on and all of a sudden your wife knows she could take it. So it's not just a good idea to, well, then I'll just retire next month. You really want to put more thought into it and more planning into there, because again, Social Security probably is not just going to be enough for you to retire on, but it is an asset. So we want to make sure we're maximizing that and getting a retirement plan together. I don't know if you didn't really state on here if you have one or not, but Sam, I would really look at some of the different variations and when to take Social Security, because you might be right. It might be better to wait depending on what you guys are going to do as far as if we're going to pull the trigger and retire or what other assets we have. It's very important that we look at all of that when deciding on when to take Social Security. So I would tell your wife, hold the phone there for just a second and give us a call. Let's come in and let's do some analysis and see what is the best time to optimize that.
This may go back to our earlier conversations today about wives and husbands and the time span they have, the attention span, when they're listening to each other. So, Sam, I hope you will give Logan's office a call and have a further conversation about all that. And our last question today is a really pertinent one, because a lot of people concerned right now about real estate and the incredibly high prices with real estate. Yeah. Eunice is in Mentone, and she says, Logan, I owe about $75,000 in my house, and I'm going to retire in about a year. So should I sell it and downsize to something smaller so that I don't have a mortgage when I retire?
Yeah, great question, Eunice. Thanks for writing in. This is a tough one. I think that, like you said, Ron, this question has been asked a few different times on some of our different platforms, and I think it's one of those ones that definitely deserves a second look and to take some time on it, because there's two different decisions, Eunice, that go into this. There's one that's emotional, right? Maybe emotional and physical, maybe meaning, I'm getting older. I'm not sure if I could take care of this house. I don't necessarily need something this big. Then there's the second decision, which is the financial one. So the financial one might also make sense. So I would kind of talk yourself through that, both of those decisions, the emotional one and physical one, as well as the financial one. Because if they both add up to a yes, then it probably is a good time to maybe sell and downsize and go into something else where you might be able to pay all cash for, or have some other money to invest or utilize, or whatever you decide to do with that. But it looks at those two decisions, because some of those are big ones. If you're one of those clients that, I have another client that has a 2-acre ranch, and basically, he's taking care of it all by himself, and he's 75 years old now, and he's at that point where he doesn't need that big property, So, and with real estate prices as high as they are, it might be a very favorable time for you to maybe sell, capitalize on that, and then relocate into something smaller, maybe where you want it to be. And also it might make sense emotionally and financially. So run through both those. If you have further questions on that, I'd love to sit down with you and talk through kind of the ins and outs of what I'm kind of saying there. But basically, you want to ask yourself those two questions and make sure they both are in line with what it is you're trying to do.
Great questions today from not only Eunice, but also Sam and Lisa. And folks, I hope you will make that phone call to Logan Sadler's office and set up a discovery meeting. Logan, what kind of things are you going to talk about in that first discovery meeting?
Yeah, great question, Ron. For those of you that have always wondered, what does Logan do at that discovery meeting? What is it like? Well, exactly how it works, you give that phone number a call, and basically you leave your name and voicemail. And on the voicemail, we give you a call back within 24 hours. And basically you come in and sit down at one of our offices, and we spend about an hour and a half just getting to know each other. I'm going to ask you different financial questions, your experience with money. We're going to go over our whole checklist as far as what assets you have, what it is you're looking to do. And that discovery meeting is really geared towards people that have done well, have saved well for retirement, and are really looking for a way to transition into retirement and get that comprehensive retirement plan, and making sure that they're looking at more than that one-size-fits-all approach, but really looking at how do I have a customized plan that's designed to fit all of my needs as well as addressing all of my concerns. That's exactly what the discovery meeting's for. If you're one of those clients getting closer to retirement and you have saved very well and looking to get a comprehensive plan, give us a call. Come in, spend an hour, and let's see if we're a good fit to work together.
888-823-PLAN. That is 888-823-7526. Call that number today and get a discovery meeting going. All you got to do today, not going to have to talk to anybody today at all. Don't need any financial statements, anything like that. Just call, leave your name and phone number, and then you'll get a call back from Regari Financial to set up your discovery meeting with Logan Sadler. 888-823-PLAN. Remember, there is no cost for this conversation and no obligation at all. It's just an opening round of talks, if you will. And again, it's going to be completely free, and you'll get a lot of good information from it. 888-823-PLAN is your number to call to make it happen. This is Ron Stutz along with Logan Sadler. And Logan, I got to say, great show today. You pointed out a lot of good things for all of us to think about, and I'm already looking forward to our next program.
I tell you what, every week when we wrap up, I'm already looking forward to next week. So appreciate each of you guys listening in and checking us out on the radio show, as well as all you guys that have been listening for a while. Again, really appreciate the support and look forward to bringing you a great show next week.
All right, join us again next time for the next edition of the Financial Beat with Logan Sadler.
The information provided is for educational purposes only and is not intended as investment advice for anyone. All information discussed is believed to be from reliable sources. However, we make no representation as to its completeness or accuracy. The views presented today are those of BD Financial Group and do not necessarily represent the views of Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC. The opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and do not constitute financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult with your financial professional before executing any financial strategy. Investment advisory and financial planning services are offered through Alpha Star Capital Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Alpha Star and BD Financial Group are independent entities. SEC registration does not constitute an endorsement of the firm by the Commission, nor does it indicate that the advisor has attained a particular level of skill or ability.